how did you mitigate that risk?
Really romantic, this idea of quit it all, put everything on the line, and then rags to riches. Like, that's a beautiful story, but there's also the reality that most startups fail.
So I had no idea what business is. I still struggle with sales.
You're talking too much in a sales conversation, you're not doing it right.
There are also a lot of more cybersecurity incidents.
I also think we just don't live in a world where privacy is a thing.
I learned really hard price of, choosing the wrong co-founders.
It's really important when you find a co-founder, someone you will not get sick of.
What's your strategy to fundraise?
We have about 500,000 US committed in our 1.5 million seed. So we're getting there. We have soft circled about another 600, so we should be very close to closing our round. There's part of me that probably needs to see, like any other entrepreneur, a psychiatrist, like, what is wrong with you? You quit a comfortable job
Exactly
to go
right.
and risk it all on an idea that you believe could work, or you have conviction that could work.
Melissa Morgan founded her first company at 19, and now she's the CEO of Coraltalk AI, platform rethinking how we assess students in a world where AI can write their homework for them. In this conversation, we dig deep into how she turned an idea into paying customers and what raising 1.5 million seed round actually looks like. Plus some hard-won sales lessons that I wish I had learned earlier. So let's dig right into it.
Thanks a lot again for taking out time, Melissa. Let's start with who you are, just a little bit about yourself, and then let's dive into what Coraltalk is.
Sure, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm Melissa, the CEO and co-founder of Coraltalk. So we let educators run oral assessments at scale with AI.
What does that mean? Let's decode the jargon. Like, what does that actually entail?
Sure. So oral assessments are considered to be the gold standard of assessments when it comes to education.
Right.
Why is that? Because you don't have things like AI writing essays for you. You have to actually have a student understand something enough such that they can teach it back to you. And you can personalize it, which is not something that a teacher or a professor with 10 to 300 students in a classroom can do at scale. So what we do is we use Coraltalk, also known as Coral, who has a conversation that's personalized to each student, asking them questions about what they allegedly wrote in their essays, and then giving instant feedback that doesn't have any sort of human bias, which until now has not been able to be done.
Right. I saw on your website that you also kind of work in the area where, the assessments which can be plagiarized using AI. So how does this concept tackles that? Because as I understand it, maybe they still have to do essays and other stuff. But how do you make sure that the plagiarism is, you counter it or you verify that they have not done that? Like, what do you do behind the scenes to do that?
Sure. So just to be clear, on Coraltalk, you could have every student getting just a conversation, so they don't have to upload a written component, but if and when they do, we naturally beat that whole AI plagiarism thing, because even if they have AI write an essay, we are now asking them questions about what they supposedly wrote.
Right.
So we're going to find out really quickly if they actually understand what's in that document. So right now there are a bunch of tools popping up. How can you beat the plagiarism checkers? And then for the teachers, it's how can you make sure you can catch when a student is teaching? And rather than going that route, we actually prefer to test true understanding. And I think the way to do that is to really have a conversation with the student, figure out what they know, and then grade based on that.
So tell me about how do you end up working in EdTech? Like, what motivated you?
Sure.
Where did the idea originate from?
Yeah, so my first company when I was 19 was called U Intuition. It was in EdTech as well. So we helped talented post-secondary students find job opportunities. We were combating needing a job to have experience, needing experience to find a job. And that has been something over the years that I've remained consistently passionate about. And I think with the way that AI has advanced to where it is, we can now do things that I, as past life as a teacher, have always wanted to do. I used to joke that I wanted to clone myself because that was the only way that I could possibly give one-on-one attention to every student. Obviously that didn't scale, but as soon as AI started becoming as good as it currently is, I realized that that is now an enabler to something that not just myself, but many other educators want.
So you said your first company was when you were 19, right?
Right.
That's very early to start any startup. So I'm guessing the entrepreneurship is kind of, built into you. It's like maybe by default, as it comes, like you're built for something. So what do you think is your where do you get that entrepreneurial itch from? Like, is it something that you've always imagined doing, or is it more something that you have learned as you have aged and got more experiences in life?
I think there's certainly an innate part of myself that loves to solve problems and genuinely feels joyous when I can see that I've done that. And the icing on the cake is being able to make money from that.
Right.
So there's a Japanese concept. Have you heard of ikigai?
Yes.
Right. So it's like, what's the intersection of what you're really good at, what you love doing, what the world needs more of, and what people are willing to pay you for? And I think for me, entrepreneurship, like, it's just the icing on the cake of what my ikigai is. So it's kind of all come together. I do think that there's part of me that probably needs to see, like any other entrepreneur, a psychiatrist, like, what is wrong with you? You quit a comfortable job
Exactly,
to go
right.
and risk it all on an idea
Right.
that you believe could work, or you have conviction that could work, right? It's not an easy thing to give away, well, the illusion of comfort
Right.
for an idea, a vision that doesn't yet exist in reality. But I find that exciting, and I think that that's what life should be about, honestly. I mean, I'm curious for you, like, you left your job at Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
So you're an example of that.
Right.
How did you decide to do that? What was the turning point for you? And that's to work at a startup, and it's your second
Right.
startup.
It's my second startup, yeah. Well, so for me, what happened was, so when I did my first startup, I quit that in a very bad burnout. 2 years I was working probably like 16, 17 hours a day. My relationships with family, friends were ruining. I wasn't giving enough time to my health. And eventually COVID happened. My mom got sick. So I took a step back, took a pause, and was like, I can't do this anymore. And ironically, I said that I'm never going to be an entrepreneur again. So I joined Microsoft. Very cushy job. Everything was great. Company, my team was great. The product was great. 3-4 months into it, we had recently met, me and my wife, and 4 months in, I guess I was like, this is way too comfortable for me. I don't really think I can survive it. But my first startup, I kind of lost a lot of money because of, I invested my personal I got a HELOC, and then that's what I invested through. So big lesson for me from there was more like, don't be just passionate, be a little bit more practical about it. So this time I waited, like I still stayed in the job for 3 to 4 years to find the right team, right people, and right financial situation to actually, do the thing. And that was our turning point in March when our company got funded in February of last year. So I was like, that's it, maybe.
Amazing. Some
Yeah.
powerful lessons there.
Yeah.
Hard ones,
hopefully.
but
yeah.
very important to learn. And I'm happy
Yeah.
that you weren't completely turned off by the
yeah,
world of startups and
no,
entrepreneurship.
I was like, I have to go back.
It's in your blood,
It's in the
right?
blood, right?
You can't get rid of it.
Yeah. So that brings me to actually want to understand from you as well. How did you mitigate that risk, like leaving your job? Maybe you were making money, comfortable. How did you manage to switch, or how was your thought process when you switched?
Yes. So one of the things that I've always understood about human psychology is that you never want to be making a decision from a place of scarcity or fear. Even when we're going to get to this, I'm sure, later in the conversation, but when we talk about fundraising,
Right.
the best time to raise is when you don't actually need money.
Right.
Because then you don't have to say yes to offers or terms that are not necessarily in your favor.
Right.
So for me, it was really important that I had X amount of dollars saved up that was aligned with me having my own runway, and also knowing that I still had passive income streams coming in. I think it's really romantic, this idea of quit it all, put everything on the line, and then rags to riches. Like, that's a beautiful story, but there's also the reality that most startups fail,
Right.
and this can be excruciatingly painful. And at the end of the day, I think, like you said, balancing the risk to reward, appreciating that you still need to eat, you still have bills to pay at the end of the day. There are ways to do that. For example, I set up a couple of contracts where now I'm just getting passive income. I consult for 1 hour a week, and that helps me to keep things afloat. I also have residuals coming in from back in the day when I used to do acting and commercials, which I still do for fun once in a while when the occasion calls for it. And rent out the basement as another way of making some side money, and then trading a little bit of stocks and options, which for me, understanding what the market is doing is a necessary part of my job anyway. So if you can come up with passive income streams that help to supplement your income, keep you afloat, doesn't mean that you need to be making the same amount, very unlikely that you will, but enough so that you know that you're not in a position of scarcity. If you have to make a decision, whether it's to take a check or to quit your job, it's coming from a place of power, empowerment, conviction, and you'll make the money if the business goes well anyway.
Right. So were you planning for it, or is it just it lined up as you came up with the idea of Coraltalk?
I think I always like to be in a position where, because I've been a freelancer for the last 13 years, that if I lose one job or one opportunity falls through the cracks, I have several others. I think there's been, I used to have a lot of questions from students that I used to teach. Miss, isn't being a freelancer very risky? Like, why wouldn't you get a full-time job? And then they would tell me they don't want to be a freelancer because it's risky. And I would have to say, if I lose the job, I still have 10 clients. If you lose your job, you have 0. What's riskier, right? And then it's, you can actually keep more money when you're a contractor, when you pay yourself as a company versus as an employee. So I think it was kind of, to answer your question more directly, it was built into the way that I was already doing business. I had the design agency, I had other income streams, and I was in a position that when everything else aligned, timing in the market, education finally being ready to adopt a technology like this, fewer teachers being threatened by AI taking their jobs, and then also finding the right team, I was able and ready to take that step. So definitely taking steps before that, and then eventually just already having the foundation so that I could work on Coraltalk when the time was right.
Being a freelancer also entails kind of building a business in itself, right? Initially when you start, you probably don't have much, you're figuring things out. And then as you scale, you have, you build your relationships, you build like a foundation that kind of scales your business. So in hindsight, it's still building a business, being a freelancer, and which I feel kind of gives, long-term strength to people, like yourself building startups now, because you have that business acumen. For me, it was very different because when I did my first company, I was like almost a fresh grad, 1.5 years experience. None of the people in my family line, they've never been businessmen. So I had no idea what business is. I still struggle with sales, to be very honest. And I guess they say like it's the most important part, like sales or going out and speaking, speaking out about your product. So I guess that's more of a strength as I see being running a freelancing business and a design agency.
Yes, building a business as a freelancer is still very much that muscle that you have to flex. It's getting clients, it's selling yourself, it's understanding what makes you different from others. So what's your and then your ICP, who do you sell to? And oh my goodness, it taught me so much over the years. And being at that point sort of a solo founder, having a surplus of work and then needing to hire talent and then going through those growing pains. It's very interesting. So, but I want to hear more about your first company. That was interesting. And also why you hate sales.
Well, I've been an engineer my whole life, and I've like fallen in love with technology, So interestingly, I tell the story to everyone. I wanted to be a space scientist in my early life when I was young. And back in India, there was this organization, there's still an organization, ISRO, which is the Space Research Organization. And there used to be just one exam which could get you into ISRO after high school. And they used to select like 130 people out of 130 billion people, or whatever number of graduates were there every year. And Obviously, I did not clear that exam to be in that organization. And then I went through different hoops. Like I thought I'll do mechanical engineering so I can build spacecrafts. And then I went to this college, I didn't like it. I'm like, okay, let's do electronics engineering because I can build components of a spacecraft. So I always wanted to be like space scientist, but obviously never ended up being that. So I started learning app development back in college, fall in love with technology, Windows Phone at that time. I've built software for like Windows desktop and back in the day when they were a thing. But coming back to the point, I have always been a technology guy. So writing code, I was like really confident. Whatever you give me, I'm like, okay, I can do this. But sales is something that I never understood. Like I never understood how that actually even works. So every person I met in sales, they told me like, start with cold outreach, That's the first step. Talk to people. Like I'm like, how do I even talk to people? Like, what does it mean to talk to people, right? So I kept getting this advice over and over and over for years until I started practicing it maybe like a couple months ago. And reaching out to you was actually part of that because I was like, okay, let's just reach out. That's cold outreach essentially, right? Just messaging someone out of the box. I guess I never really understood sales. So there are like so much things around it. ICP, I never knew what ICP was or how do you build even one, right? It's kind of a hard question to answer. So, or maybe not for some people.
Well, I used to think of sales as this very mysterious area that I needed special coaching on or I needed to bring in an expert on. And honestly, I still feel that way sometimes.
Right.
But I think at the core of it, when I've tried to learn about sales, it's like if you want to use a fishing metaphor, if you want to catch a salmon, it's better to go out during spawning salmon season and to an area where they're more likely to be found. And it's an interesting metaphor because it translates very well to, for example, early adopters, people who are primed to already buy your product, people with the problem that your product or service solves. And if you go to those places, to those events at a certain time when they're more likely to be primed for it, then you're not pitching anything. You're just having a conversation. I have a really great sales mentor who told me, he's like, if you're talking too much in a sales conversation, you're not doing it right. Because your talk time should be at like 30% and there should be at least 70. And it's just understanding what problems are they facing, getting a full comprehension of, okay, if I'm building, this is going to be, I love my funny metaphors, something for Batman. Like, okay, let's do this. Let's have some fun right now. Okay, so we are building a kitchen appliance for Batman. Okay. Now I would start going through by thinking about, okay, well, what would Batman probably eat? What do you think Batman eats?
Salmon.
Okay, salmon. Yes, salmon. I would think he's probably pretty healthy.
Yeah.
I could see him on keto. I don't know though.
Probably.
I wouldn't
no bread.
Maybe. he's got a
vegetables,
stay in shape.
Right.
Lots of veggies, right? And then I would think, okay, here's my hypotheses about Batman. He's probably really busy, so he probably needs something to save him time.
Right.
He probably cares about his appearance, so aesthetic would matter.
Right.
I don't think price would matter too much for him. He'd probably pay for something that would save him time.
Yeah.
And then I would start, that's your ICP. Now I'm thinking about who am I selling to? What is a day in their life like? How can I think about it? And then the next step would be have a call with Batman.
Right.
Hey, Batman, if I could wave a magic wand, this is my number one question I always ask for sales and UX and product design. It's like, if I could wave a magic wand and solve your problem, what problem would I be solving? How would I solve it? And a lot of times they already know what they want. Sometimes they don't, but in most cases they can get you most of the way there. So if he says, I really want salmon, but the problem is it takes too long to cook, or I like to really marinate my salmon or something like that. And I was like, what is this worth for you? Like, how often do you eat salmon? What do you do right now to solve this problem? Et cetera, et cetera. And then it just becomes me doing a discovery to better understand Batman's current process and how important this is and how much he's willing to pay.
Right.
And then the last 10% of that conversation, and normally you're supposed to set up like a secondary call where now you do a little bit more talking, is what if I told you I could solve that problem? That's it.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow.
Problem solving.
I guess that also inherently comes from your maybe product design background, because so that's one problem that I've seen with myself and engineers in general, that they are very good at doing things which they are told to do. They don't really find problems. That's not in the inherent programming, if I may say, right? Even in my last startup, I was a co-founder, but I was like technical co-founder, and the problem statement was manufacturing. I never really went deep into understanding the problem as as something foundational to solve. I always looked for things that, do you need this to be on mobile or web? Do you need a table or do you need a form? Specs, exactly, right? That's the kind of thinking I feel was missing for a very long time for me. And now that I have recently started talking to a lot of people, kind of understood, how to even capture the problem from conversations. So I think that mindset itself kind of builds the roots of anyone trying to solve any problem, like, especially for entrepreneurs, because you need to really know the nail you're trying to hammer, right? And that kind of makes or breaks the thing, because if you understand it well, it's easier to sell it, or easier to it's not even selling, I would say. It's more about, if you can show them it saves you something, money, time, or anything, gives you a luxury, people will pay for it. And that's the hard part.
Yeah, I think so too. Just to add to that, if we had, going back to the Batman example, we have a knife, right? We can talk about the specs of the knife. We can say it's made out of this type of material, it's got this type of handling, it's got this weight, these sort of objective specs, if you will. And a lot of times, one of the biggest, I think, product mistakes that people make, even when they advertise something on a website, it's like, here are all the features versus here are the benefits. Here's why you need this thing. With this knife, you can, depending on who I'm pitching it to, chop finely sauteed vegetables. That's not the right wording for it. You can tell I don't cook that much. It's my husband's department. But like, you can do things with this knife, right? Or I don't know, you can frame someone for murder. I don't know. But it's still a knife, right? And the knife, depending on who you're pitching it to, changes the story that you tell about it. And that's why it's so important to have those conversations with customers. I'm always amazed at how few conversations sometimes entrepreneurs have, and they don't even use their own product. It's like, would you use this thing? But you're expecting people to buy it. So I'm with you. I think that is the hardest part.
So what kind of signals do you pick up? Like, if we were to put it, I don't know, maybe sort of a framework. Let's say you don't have an idea. You are a very passionate person. You want to do something. You want to solve a problem. You want to be an entrepreneur. How do you find signals around any area? So how did you find signals about, like, maybe voice AI is the right thing, right? It could have been something else. It could have been, I don't know, written statements. It could have been videos. It could have been a WhatsApp bot. But why voice AI? Like, how did you pick up that signal that this is the right problem to solve?
It's about figuring out where the puck is going to go. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they'll see a signal in the market, like, oh, there's a competitor here, so that means that I should do it. And in many cases, that's fair. However, for us with voice AI, what we were noticing is that 11 Labs started to do well. There were some other competitors that were popping up. And it became about, how do we now take this thing, at the time ChatGPT, but obviously there were other LLMs that came out, but how do we take this thing that feels like an AI and make it feel more human? And so what comes with that? Well, it's voice. We're already starting to see now it's visual representations. We're having people make clones of themselves. And it's pretty easy to kind of see the natural progression, I think, of where AI is today and where it will go. But how do you piece those two things together? How do you avoid jumping on the bandwagon of something that's hype versus something that actually has real market value? For us, it was looking at a legacy industry like education, recognizing that there are many problems. I mean, I knew it because I worked in that space for so long. I'd gone through the whole 5 years at the University of Waterloo. So I knew that there were things that were fundamentally flawed that couldn't be solved with the way that things were currently done. And so legacy industries that require disruption because there's some sort of the process that's just not optimized or something that hasn't been humanly possible before AI, combine that with figuring out where the puck is going to go. And then I think you have a pretty good shot of thinking about a great idea. But at the end of the day, it always comes down to execution. Like so many, and I'm sure you probably agree with that, right? Like you can have the same idea, but at the end of the day, who wins? It's the team that has the roadmap, the plan, the way to execute, the traction, the customer success.
So I was saying that it's kind of really amazing that how AI has enabled people to kind of build, startups and build products faster and even more than being faster, I guess for people who were not able to code, for them it has given them a tool to kind of start something, right, without the need of just hiring right away and so on. So there are more experiments now, more products now, more startups coming up.
Do you think that's a good thing?
Mostly yes, yeah.
Mostly yes?
Yeah.
Why mostly yes?
One thing that I really like about this whole idea is we're getting more ideas essentially, right? So what that means is that we have more imagination in the market. So product managers, product designers, someone who doesn't know anything about, let's say, product, but they had something in their mind, they can quickly go and experiment something, right? It's great to kind of build like an MVP and prove your concept and see if that is something that, if you really had this back of the mind imagination about one problem that I want to solve for years, and you don't have money to hire someone, a developer, or you don't know anything about tech. Now you can go into Claude and build like a web page replicating the problem, or even use tools like Replit to do a small MVP. So in that sense, I kind of really like it because there are more, different angles coming up in the market, right, which were not used to be there. That's the mostly yes part. But then the other side of it, where when these tools go to production, when these tools are actually used by people, there are also a lot of more cybersecurity incidents, right? More leakage of data, like people don't really understand what they're deploying. On the other hand, people are using AI to build the non-ethical tools as well, right? So, video has gone so real, like AI videos, you cannot tell the difference.
Yeah.
So people can take this shot and create something else out of it, we wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
Right, so in that sense, it's kind of hard to, keep a check on this. But I guess there are solutions coming up for that as well. So maybe with time, as we have seen the AI grow, we'll see how the security side of it grows as well. But so far, I don't really know, or I don't think actually that there's much on the security end being done.
Legislation, security, these are things that I think are very far behind that we'll need to catch up. I also think we just don't live in a world where privacy is a thing anymore.
Right.
It's impossible. I mean, why even try at this point? Just give up. Once you're online, once you have any version of an online presence, the things that they can do, we walk around with computers in our pocket that have tracking devices. I mean, just, but I've also asked myself the question, what is the value of privacy anyway? Is that important? What does someone have to hide that is really that secretive that most humans don't already do in some capacity? You know what I mean?
I've never heard that before. Like value of privacy, like what does it mean?
I think that privacy is something that conceptually humans like to want because it gives them a sense of autonomy and a sense of importance. But the reality is most of that is an illusion, given that if you use any sort of social media service or any app on your phone, you're giving strangers access to your data. And I mean, I've taken the 23andMe test. We all know what happened with that company. Then there's the leak of AshleyMadison.com.
Right.
And a lot of people will argue that from an ethical standpoint, that was one of the best things to have happened because of just airing out someone's dirty laundry. But it was always there to begin with. So I think privacy allows people to feel like they can do things or have the option of doing things that might be considered unethical. And it's just a veil to hide behind. But if someone looks at my phone and says, oh, this person is constantly watching productivity videos with the occasional South Park episode, and takes a lot of photos of her dog. Did I lose anything by that? Is my life that interesting that someone needs to dig in with a magnifying glass, and even if they did, would they really find anything? So why care about it?
Unless there's something to hide.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that people who care about privacy have something to hide, although that could be the case. But I think that people who care about privacy in the world of AI, recognizing they voluntarily opt into the system by being part of any aspect of the internet or owning any piece of technology, are dreaming in Technicolor.
Yeah. So you record a lot of students.
Yes.
So that naturally brings me to the point. How do you handle security? Because
Yeah.
these are minors, right?
Yes.
So it kind of, and these are academic institutions. What are you doing for security and to keep it safe for students?
Yes, so we're currently getting all of our compliance checks done. We're a startup, so that kind of thing takes time and money, but
Right.
we should have that within the next few months. But we've got, in terms of how we would pass that, we have all the checks built in. So everything is encrypted, the data is not owned by us. If a teacher, if a school, if a student wants to delete their data at any time, it is completely removed off of our platform. And we have other pieces in place, like making sure that if the student is under the age of 18, we have parental consent, so COPPA compliance, things like that.
Is there like an age bracket for, or like specific grades, or like are you in universities or high schools or both, or does it matter?
We think
What's
our
your
sweet spot
target?
to start as a beachhead, private schools, high schools, but also post-secondary. And this is not something we want to focus on now, but we do see the opportunity to get into corporate learning,
I see.
eventually being able to have data that is meaningful to follow the student across their academic journey in a way that allows them to figure out what they want to do when they grow up to get that job, and then for companies to be able to have more than just a resume to make a decision off of, or hiring a person because someone knows someone's uncle or cousin. So that's really our bigger vision and our commitment. Getting into predictive analytics, can we understand the nature of a caterpillar to know that one day it's destined to become a butterfly? And then extending that metaphor to a human, and then helping them to create an environment that is going to allow them to become the best version of themselves possible, and giving them a job, having an employer find that employee with more confidence rather than just, well, I hired them because they were maybe really good in an interview, and like I said, they know someone, or they have a good AI tool to write their resume.
Yeah. So you said a very interesting point that when these students kind of use the product, your goal is to kind of help them being more employable in general, especially for post-secondary, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that also kind of brings the point of, the current market situation where it's really hard to get jobs. Is that the inherent nature of the product, to increase employability, or is it more towards just academic learning?
I think it's a natural byproduct. Ultimately, education is a foundation for your future and your career. So whether it's employability, or if we can inspire more future founders to realize that they have certain traits, certain attributes that they're excelling in, to help them start that journey more quickly and more seamlessly, then that's what we want to do. But yeah, you're right. The job market right now, it's interesting to say the least.
True.
And with the state of AI, I was listening to something this morning that said if AI takes between 5 to 6% of jobs, which actually seems quite plausible at this stage, then we could be looking at something close to the Great Depression in terms of the kind of recession that we would see in numbers, with the way that the market would react. I feel like that's an inevitability, not necessarily tomorrow, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Today's AI is great, but it's more like a wheel. You still need a driver to drive the car, right? But we have all seen, like, the autonomous AI coming up, right? Again, more technical example would be AI building features and opening PRs for you. So you're there just to review, right? So that kind of, I don't know how good it is, I haven't tried myself, but like if that really works, so you don't really need a junior engineer at all to build stuff. Like what you need now is more like senior engineers or architects who can review code and then give feedback, and then the product just works like magically, right? What concerns me is that, so we don't hire junior engineers ourselves, right? But I still have a big concern around that, because if you don't hire juniors, who's gonna be the next wave of seniors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna lead that middle management, or like that progression, the natural career progression? Who's gonna be on that path? So that's where it kind of scares me in a good way, that we are using AI in all of our operations. It gives us like a superpower we never thought we could have, and now that we have it, I'm kind of scared about the next generation of graduates who are, I don't know what they're gonna do, right? Maybe that's where your company and your product is coming in. I think it's very natural that if you have someone going through a traditional education versus learning from AI, I think it's safe to say that AI is obviously going to be a better source of information.
I hope so.
Right? Because, I mean, in a traditional path, you have like very minimal or very limited set of information that you can grab from. Let's say if you're reading a book, let's say you're doing algebra, right? That's the only thing that you can learn from that book. But with AI, you can just take the conversation into a lot of possibilities, and it's going to give you more accurate information, more faster information. I've also read about your company and on your website that you don't replace teachers. How do you build that into the system? I mean, for me, I see a natural path is replacing people, maybe not today, but maybe like 2, 3, 5 years down the lane. What's your take on that? Like, how do you make sure that, what do you think about that in education? How does Coraltalk becomes a bridge for that versus a barrier?
Sure. So first of all, I fundamentally agree with what you're saying, that yes, some jobs will no longer be in existence, but we will have new ones. I mean, we've seen this decade and century after century with new inventions. People don't shut down and panic that now we have airplanes. So I can't, pull people on my back anymore, or take them on my boat or whatever it was. And we will have new jobs created. We will have things that people need to do that maybe we can't even fathom they'll need to do today. So I'm very excited by it. I think this is a natural Darwinian form of evolution that we're going through as a human species. And it's something that, whether we like it or not, it's here to stay, and we should just embrace it. I'm not blind, however, to the limitations of AI. Understanding that AI slop is very dangerous, not because it's just slop, but because AI slop trains on itself, right? So we put out a YouTube video, the next day someone finds that YouTube video, it can reference it as a source. But if someone creates a video with AI, doesn't do the extra step of making sure that all those sources are verifiable and then publishes it, that now becomes a fact that the other AI, the future AI, can reference. And then what happens when a company like Coraltalk goes in and references that and teaches it to students? So I think that it's extremely important that we have human intervention, at least for the foreseeable future. And that's one of the things that we do with Coraltalk, is we allow each individual teacher to have their own personality, the way that they teach, built into their version of the platform. They also add their class syllabus, any references, sites, videos that they believe Coral should be pulling from. And we put those guardrails up to not just pull from any random thing on the internet, only approved content. And I think that's going to be an important aspect, not just for Coraltalk,
right,
but for other companies that want to establish legitimacy or trust. Because once that trust is broken, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I try to shop around with different AIs and different LLMs, the minute I see something that is very clearly incorrect, I now distrust that platform. And I always have to keep checking it for work, or I'll move to a different platform, right? So trust is very difficult to repair, especially in the world of tech today. And so I think it's very important, and this would be my advice for entrepreneurs, is make sure that you are building trust from very early on with all of your customers, because the minute you break that, it's very hard, if not impossible, to get it back.
Yeah, that's we have seen that as well, AI hallucinating, making things up. We may have missed it sometimes as well, right? Because you never know, right? It could be such a broad topic. But I want to switch a little bit of gears here and, go to something you said about how the students and professors in the universities are adopting it. You get the material approved. It's kind of designed in a way. How was your structure around piloting this product? Like, how did you approach, going back to a little bit of sales here, like what connections did you make? Like, what was your strategy when you started off, when you were no one, when you didn't have a product? I think, the reason I wanna cover something here is that, especially when you build a product for legacy institutions, like either academic or corporate, it's really hard to get into them, because you gotta know the right person in that huge org. And the second, it's extremely hard to change. Like, the change in these big corporations is crazy. Like, it's you really need to have someone motivated to do that. So how did you end up piloting, I guess 5 universities, right?
Not just universities. We had 5 schools.
Okay.
One of them was actually not a school. One of them was an individual professor from Schulich School of Business.
Wow.
But that's a great question, and happy to help anyone listening to this, because it was not obvious, the path forward. So I'm going to break it down step by step. What did I do? So the very first thing I did was I thought about, what is a problem space that I would like to investigate, and who do I know within my existing network that would be someone that could maybe point me in the right direction, give me some context, help me think through this idea. So going back to our Batman metaphor, with Batman, you can watch the movie, so you know who he is.
Right.
But I haven't been able to be a fly on the wall for these potential future Batmans. I don't know. I need to get into their headspace and understand what problems they need solved. So I had a nugget of an idea that I didn't fall in love with, just a hypothesis that perhaps other teachers like me would benefit from being able to clone themselves, and I wanted to validate that. So the first thing I did was I made a list of all of the people in my network that I thought might be experiencing that problem, and just had conversations with them, open-ended questions. What kind of problems are you facing day to day? What keeps you up at night? What are you currently doing to solve these problems? Have you thought about other solutions? What's stopping you? If I could solve this problem, what would that be worth to you?
So that was before you had product?
Yes, that was all before.
Okay.
So before I built anything, it was conversations with people to validate the hypothesis that I had. I think it's easier than ever now, as we were talking about, to just go and prototype something, and that's great to do. But even before that, it's also even better, I think, to have some sort of conviction, because you've actually spoken to people and validated the idea. That said, a lot of people will say that they might pay for something, but then when it comes down to putting their credit card, they don't. So what I did, because I had worked on a startup previously and I had made that mistake in the past, was I said, okay, I'm going to ask all of these people these sets of questions, and I'm going to see who actually gives me their credit card up front. Like, who would pay before I've even built anything, which at the time sounded crazy, but I wanted to just see if that would work. And sure enough, I was able to lock in pilots that ranged from like an individual educator committing like $80 US to try it out, all the way up to a pilot that was $20,000 US for a school, before I wrote a single line of code.
You actually got their credit cards?
Yes, they sent us.
How?
They didn't send the full 20K, right? But they sent like 3,000 as a deposit before we did anything, because that's how painful this problem was. And then I started to think, okay, so now I know how much people are willing to pay to solve this problem. Now it's worth exploring. And then they became design partners on how to build it. So rather than me making something, like going to my kitchen and baking you a cake and saying, here you go, this is pistachio, and then you tell me you have a nut allergy, and I'm like, okay, but it's still pretty and green. Like, you can buy it, you can sell it to someone else. It looks nice, right? Versus me saying like, what do you like to eat? what's, you know, and then learning about you, and then going back to the kitchen and then making you what you actually want. It's just
I don't believe it. How did you do that? I really I wanna dig into this. How did you end up getting someone to pay you without a product?
Because
That's gold.
yes. So I will say that the first customer that we had, I had an existing relationship with this person.
Okay.
They were my client for 9 years on and off.
Right.
And I had led their design teams. So there was a certain level of already established trust and willingness and desire for them to support us and see us succeed. But also, they knew that I understood their business. And so they knew that whatever I was going to make had that extra layer of, okay, Melissa actually understands what we're trying to do here. She's worked on the product before.
So they knew that you don't have a product.
Yes. They.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We told
so it's
them,
not like
if
you
we were to
presented a
build this,
website. Okay.
No, we had nothing. We
Got
didn't
it.
have a name yet.
Okay.
I didn't even have the company set up. I think we took our first payment to my creative design agency.
Got it.
And it was very early stage, but they were a design partner.
Okay.
And because we then built it around what they needed, what their problems were, and we validated that with, funny enough, we got our second sort of, the biggest second pilot that we had was a school, a representative from a school that saw one of my LinkedIn posts and reached out to me directly and said that he had experienced this problem and he was trying and failing sort of poorly at trying to create a solution with ChatGPT, and he couldn't do it. And so he wanted to talk, and he really collaborated as a very successful design partner with us and helped us shape that. And what I was doing now, because I've got sort of two different companies with overlapping but still different needs, that's when I had to put my product designer hat on and say, okay, what is going to be transferable to our ICP? What are the product features that a company is asking for that is just for them and too niche versus the ones that will translate to other companies that I could actually profit off of? And then making that tough decision sometimes to go back to these early believers and say, that's awesome, we're going to put it on our backlog for now because I'm not confident that that's necessarily what we're doing. And then that's tough. Like, it's hard to say no to people that are ready to give you money before you've built anything. But you have to, because otherwise you end up just building something that is so specific to one person that it doesn't scale. And so it's hard, and I'm not pretending to have all the answers to this, but it is important to be able to think about what are the core problems you're solving for what subset of people. Start niche. Already I went broader than I thought we would, having the fact that we're selling already to high schools and universities, and we're getting organic interest from K-12, or I guess K-8, and from corporate companies that want to use this to train their employees. But I have to have pretty much blinders on and say, this is what we're doing. Like, if you're wanting to use it the way that it currently exists, you're welcome to. But that focus, especially early on, I think is so important. So if you pretend to solve something for everyone, you're not solving anything for anyone.
That's great, actually. So you actually say no to people at this point as well, if that doesn't fit your primary use case, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that's really tough for any entrepreneur early on. It's a pretty bold move to do that because very few understand the focus, right? And if you move out of focus and you try to solve everything, it kind of solves nothing at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's great. I mean, that's a great story. Kudos to you. I don't have words.
Thank you.
So pilots to customers.
Yes.
How did that journey look like? So you didn't have a product. Now, maybe there comes the point where you hire someone, or how did that work out?
I had a false start trying to hire one of my friends. And I think sometimes in the spirit of saying no, you have to also recognize who is actually going to be able to move the product forward, who's got a good commitment, versus how big is my heart that I want to help someone out. And I think going through that, it made me realize what I actually need on my team. And that's hard to find. And I knew that. Finding a co-founder is tough.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And I also didn't want to just keep hiring like I contacted a lot of different people. I checked out agencies. I had conversations with people from different parts of the world that said that they could help to build me an MVP. But nothing feels as good as having someone that is there along for the journey with you, and having a co-founder. So I knew I always wanted that. But after that sort of false start with one of my friends, I said, you know what? I'm not going to rush that. I need to find the right person. I think I had maybe some ego behind, but I've been working at this for a while and they're just going to join me 3 to 5 months later. And they were going to get the co-founder title. And I think a lot of founders think that way.
Yeah.
But no, it's still very early in the journey if you think about the longevity of what will likely be a 10-year business.
Exactly.
So for me, at first, I thought, let me find a contractor just to help me put something in front of my now converted pilot customers. And then it kind of went from there where I said, you know what, I'm part of the TopTal network. So allegedly we're part of the top 3% in the world. Who knows if that's
I'm part
true?
of TopTal network.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Amazing. Okay, then it must be true. Yeah. So because of that pre-vetting, I said, you know what, let me go on TopTal and see who I could find in my networks there. So you're part of the Slack community. So I actually remembered, I said, I've actually worked with someone. I thought back to who are the people I've worked with on TopTal for different projects. And then Addie was someone that I worked with, like, at the time it was 1.5 years ago, or maybe 2 years ago. And we had done really well in a couple of projects. And I said, you know what, let me just reach out to him and see if he's willing to do this as a contractor. And then I hired him as a contractor, but he was too good at his job. He was showing initiative and he was giving me ideas and he was telling me that, like, he showed it to this teacher and got feedback. And I said, wow, you're thinking about this in all the right ways. Okay, what if you were to be a founding engineer?
Right.
And then he said yes to that, but then he was too good at that job. So then eventually, because we really enjoyed working with each other, he became my full co-founder. And he is like, Addie's gonna watch this, don't let this go to your head, okay? But he's amazing. Like, he honestly doesn't matter what time of day. He makes mistakes, but he fixes them. He works very hard. He understands the product. And just like myself, he's fully in, like all in, nothing else, no distractions. His visa to come to Canada wasn't approved, which was a whole other story. So we went to Vietnam and we worked there for a month. And we're going actually to Indonesia in a week for a month.
Wow.
And that's how committed we both are. So that now that we've got that as part of our core team, he's been an educator himself. I know he's great at what he does to build. We can now add to the team. And so we're actually hiring right now. So we're looking for a founding engineer.
Well,
Let me know if
a lot of people looking at it.
Yeah, there you go. See, creating jobs.
Job market is crazy.
Yeah.
So a lot of people looking.
Yeah.
I guess we'll try to find someone.
Yeah, so founding engineer, mid to senior software engineer,
Awesome.
and someone who can help with operations and go to market.
That's great. So how long did that process take for you to actually, pinpoint to your co-founder now? It's a gruesome journey. I know it's really hard.
Yeah. Do you mean, like, how long did it take for me to decide that this was someone that could be
it's more like a marriage, right? It's matchmaking. You really want to make sure it's the right person.
Yeah.
Because they can, like, make or break the journey.
Totally.
So what made you trust? What happened? Like, how did you decide? What signals did you pick up to say that this is the right person?
This is going to sound really funny, but I think it was when he disagreed with me on something.
No, I can believe that.
I think even in a marriage or any type of dynamic, when you have someone that respects you enough to be able to communicate something tactfully, but also cares enough about the thing it is that you're creating together, whether it's a life or a business, to be able to vocalize a disagreement so that you can actually work together as a team. That's, I think, the moment in my mind when I shifted away from saying this is someone who I'm just paying money and it's a transactional relationship. I give him money, he gives me output, to, he's questioning my decision and he's bringing evidence as to why, and not just calling it a problem, but presenting a potential solution. And then I said, okay, that's quite collaborative. it was unprovoked because initially there was no conversation or promise that he was going to ever be my co-founder. So it was me being impressed by this person that clearly had that entrepreneurial acumen. We had built enough rapport with each other that he felt comfortable coming out and telling me that he thought we should do something differently. And then he presented his arguments in a very convincing manner. And I'm not an easy person to convince. I can be convinced, but you're going to need to argue well and back up your rationale with data and tangible rationale. So yeah, I think that was probably the moment for me that it shifted. And that whole period of time was probably over the course of 2 months.
Okay.
I think I heard you say something in one of your videos about the importance of having a trial period when you're joining. I couldn't agree more. I love that you said that. I think that's so important. It's like, even, I mean, yes, arranged marriages are a thing, of course, and those work very well for other reasons, but I think even like the dating process is a trial period.
Right.
How are you going to understand? And I mean, with dating and even trial processes, everyone is still on their best behavior. So you don't necessarily get the full extent of what that's like.
Right.
But at some point you have to take a leap. You have to trust in your own judgment and enough in another person that you are making the right decision, right? But we know, unfortunately, the divorce rates are high. Marriages don't always work. I want to believe that people go into marriages.
Do you have a prenup?
No. Nope. But it's interesting, right? It's like you need, but I do for my co-founder agreement.
That's
because it's business, but marriage you could see it as business. I mean, it's like, is it romanticized or is it not? There's ways to think about it, but I think it's really important to, when you find a co-founder, have someone that is someone you will not get sick of, and someone that you can fight with.
Right.
Like truly, because I think about the conversations that my co-founder and I have had, and our fights have actually brought us closer together. And that in itself is reason, I think, for me to keep working with him. Because a lot of times you can have fights and you part ways, or you just like fundamentally disagree, but our fights actually allow us to see each other's perspectives. We both really respect the perspectives that we bring to the table, and I see him like a sibling. Like, we beat each other up with a pillow the other day. It's playful, and it's not all sort of an act.
You also want to build that, kind of relationship where you want to come back to work the next day.
Yes.
It's not like, we had an argument, oh, I don't want to talk to this person. It's not going to work that way. Right?
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Do you have someone in mind that if you had to start your own business tomorrow, you would want to be your co-founder?
No.
No?
Well, yes and no, because I learned really hard, like the price of choosing the wrong co-founders. My first company, my co-founders were my best friends from I knew them for 20 years. The thing is, I took that as a sign of working together, that someone 20 years, great people. I mean, that's why we were friends, that's why we were best friends, right? Because there are great people, we go along so well. But fundamentally, running a business is so different, and you gotta uplift each other. And I won't pretend that I knew everything. I wasn't perfect. I was really bad at doing stuff, and because this was my first startup, I was very naive, right? I had a year and a half experience, that doesn't even count. I was still fresh grad, basically, right? And I kind of, now that I look for, when I want to work with someone, I'm a founding engineer myself now. So even the founder that I wanted to work with, I took 2 years to find that right person. So before I joined the startup, I kind of rejected 2 before this, after spending 3 months with each of them. And I realized, okay, it's not going to work. Because even the founding engineer role, in at least what I'm doing, I'm pretty much doing everything except I'm getting paid, right, this time. And that's the primary difference. But now I work with people that I truly respect. So finding a co-founder for the next time, it's going to be a rigorous process for me. It's not going to be a light process.
As it should.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it should be. Yes.
And if you find people that you work with, someone told me about the concept of the infinite game. You familiar with this?
No, I'm not.
So the infinite game
You're talking about the Avengers Infinite game, or
no?
No, okay.
I don't
Then
think
I'm
there's
not.
any correlation.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, but the infinite game is this notion that life is a game, and you never know when people that you meet today could show up in your story arc down the road. And so there's the butterfly effect. Everything that you do today is going to have an impact tomorrow. And so even though you think one person might not be crucial to your main quest, your side quest could eventually bleed into that.
Right.
So you may have already met your future co-founder,
Right.
and perhaps you or them contact each other down the road. I mean, that's my former co-founder. We were in the same University of Waterloo incubator program, but working on very different companies in very different spaces. And then he messaged me on LinkedIn 7 years later. And even my husband, I met him, and it wasn't until 6 years after that we started dating.
Right.
And so it's interesting how sometimes the seeds that you plant today can ultimately come to fruition
Right.
down the road.
Yeah.
So I'm just playing the infinite game.
Yeah.
You never know who your
That
next,
is great.
yeah,
Yes.
your next
Yes.
client,
Yeah.
co-founder, spouse
Truly.
could be.
No, that's so true. I also believe that if you find the right people, it becomes less about the product and becomes more about the team. Because then you can solve any problem with the team, right? It's not just like, for us, we have pivoted from being a hiring platform for service-based businesses to now an agentic AI platform for sourcing, right? With the same people, right? And it was more about the cohesiveness of the team that kept us together. If you find the right co-founder, I believe it's more about I should enjoy working with this person than if he knows how to solve this problem. That's probably not the right thing to look at, I feel. I think the right thing is if you enjoy working with them, if all the check boxes are checked, wherever the product takes you, wherever the company takes you, that person will be on your side.
Ideally, they have both. It'd be great if they also knew how
that
to
would be
solve
awesome.
the problem. Yeah, I'm with you though. That's definitely more important. And I think especially in an early stage startup, as I'm sure you can attest to, the idea is going to change.
Right.
It must, because you're learning more information, and you can only ever make a decision with the information that you have at the time. So as you gather more information, you are inevitably going to either pivot like you did, or at least change your focus, change the features, change your ICP at some point. So the team has to be flexible and has to be willing to understand that data ultimately needs to drive the decision.
Right.
I'm curious, why did you guys decide to pivot?
So we looked at the data. So what happened was we went out, started selling the product, and we had this target by a VC. They were like, if you get like 50 customers, we'll invest. And we ended up getting like 70 customers. And we did a lot of work to do that, right? We spent a lot more than we gained. But what we realized in that process, in that like the data we got, was that the ROI, like at the particular price point, it wasn't as good to sustain the business. Like the price point was too low that people were willing to pay for that problem to be solved, and that wasn't sustainable. So putting that much effort for that particular thing was, we thought that is probably not for the best. And it's good to realize that earlier than later on. Right?
Yes. It's, in the grand scheme of things, a great experiment.
Yeah.
And I think still worth pursuing.
Right.
I think sometimes we feel like we waste time on things, but as long as we learn something, it's never a waste, because we won't repeat that same mistake.
Someone told me, like, if you're making new mistakes every time you're progressing. So
Yes.
that's a good sign.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
Yeah.
quote by Einstein. I've not failed. I've just found 1,000 ways that don't work.
Some influencer told me. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know where it came from. I want to shift some gears here and talk money. Did you fundraise?
Yes, we're in the middle of our round
You are
right
in the middle
now.
of raising.
Yes.
Okay. What's your like strategy to fundraise? Like, how are you approaching angels or VCs or whatever you're looking at? Like, what's your philosophy there?
Yeah, I'm realizing that not all money is created equal.
Okay.
I'm realizing that strategic investors will be much more helpful for us than those that are ready to give cash. I've actually walked away from several $100,000s because I didn't feel like we were aligned, and I recognize that there's no such thing as free money.
How did that came in? Like, how did you know you were not aligned?
Yeah, it came down to them wanting immediately to go into the corporate market, corporate learning, and it was a very big difference of how we should do that play. It's not that I disagree that that could be immediately more financially lucrative. They're probably right, but we're very much a value-driven and mission-driven company, and that was a fundamental misalignment that I knew would impact our future dynamic. And it just wasn't something that I wanted to do. I knew that if we had gone with that VC, they would have most likely had their own vision of where Coraltalk should go. And they wouldn't have necessarily had a big enough stake to control that, but they would have had a big enough stake to have had a board seat. And I didn't want to lose control of Coraltalk, especially at this stage.
At this stage, yes.
Yeah. While the vision is still solidifying, and for the primary reason of just making more money, because I think money comes, it can be a natural byproduct of doing something that is actually good for the world that people really want. And so it's just a fundamental misalignment of values. So in terms of like, where else are we in the round? We have about 500,000 US committed in our 1.5 million seed. So we're getting there. We have soft circled about another 600. So we should be very close to closing our round. What I'm learning, I don't know if you've ever seen that Spider-Man meme where Spider-Man's kind of like this and he's looking both ways and he's pointing the gun. He's like, who's going to go first? That's pretty much been my experience with VCs. They want an indicator from a reputable lead VC, which we now have. And before that, though, it was like, let us know once you have your lead.
Right.
We're interested, we're in, but let us know once you have your lead. So if I could go back and do the whole thing over again, it would have been, ironically, advice that I had already gotten but struggled to keep, which was to start the process of fundraising way before we wanted to raise and book meetings months down the road, like 2-3 months. I actually did that with one VC where I said, hey, thank you so much for reaching out, because they contacted us on LinkedIn. And I said, right now our focus is on product R&D, but we're going to be fundraising later this year. At the time it was last year. Would love to get back in touch when that's going to happen. And then I would have stacked all my meetings, because the momentum that you get from having back-to-back VC meetings, even just building that muscle of regularly talking about it, talking about the company, understanding where some VCs struggle, where they have continuous questions, and even just noticing myself for what are the areas that I feel like I have full conviction in, and where are the areas where I take pause, or perhaps I could be tighter with my responses, or did they ask me about a metric that I didn't have on hand? That's a learning experience, and then I do it better and better each time. So I would have stacked the meetings with the VCs that maybe I wasn't that keen on in the beginning, earlier on, and then sort of the ones that I knew I really wanted a little bit later, but still within the same few weeks.
Right. That's interesting. How did you, so I want to drill down a little bit deeper. So I guess everyone's interested in how to actually begin the process. That's the hard part. Because if you think about fundraising, again, it comes at the cost of, having a good network, some say, or, if you have good connections in the industry, or if you know someone who knows someone and so on, right? how did you approach that? Like, what was the first step where you were like, okay, now we know we want to raise. What do we do next? Do you just cold email? What strategy did you?
Yeah, I've tried them all. And I think some will be more effective than others, depending on the person. But
Okay.
I've definitely got people on my cap table that are people that I've known in a personal way. And so they know whatever idea you're doing, you'll probably figure out a way to make it work. So that's an easier sell. But I've also done the cold outreach thing. And we're in final stages of due diligence with those that I just applied online to. And we've done the warm intro thing, which definitely helps. We can pretty quickly get a meeting on the calendar, so we almost skip a stage. And that's been very helpful. I've pitched at Elevate. We came apparently in second, which is almost more
Awesome.
painful than not placing at all,
Wow.
though. But there were several people that really resonated with what we were doing. There were parents in the room. VCs, at the end of the day, a lot of them are parents.
Right.
So they appreciate the mission behind what we're doing. And I think over time I got to be more confident in the story that we're telling, the mission that we're aiming to complete, and the problems that we're trying to solve. And that just became better and better the more that I told that story again and again. So
Awesome.
yeah, a combination of all of those things. And I mean, we'll see what the cap table ends up finally looking like. But hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have closed our round. We'll see.
So I want to talk a little bit about the pitch. That also is something people really obsess about. My pitch has to be the best one. Like, what do you think? Like, so there could be fancy pitches and there could be more practical pitches. What has worked for you? What was thing in your pitch that really made it work? And for investors to be like, okay, that's what I want to see.
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying I'm not necessarily trying to impress any particular investor. I know that some founders might go into a setting and be like, oh, what do I say? What do I do to make them want me? But that already creates a power imbalance. And so when I go into VC meetings, first of all, my attitude is we're interviewing each other. Because if you're buying a piece of my company, we're working together for 10 years. This is very mutual. So I don't mind that a VC might not resonate with what we're doing, and I'm very happy to say thank you for your time, really appreciate it, this is not a fit. And at the same time, when I am giving a pitch to someone that I think could be aligned with what we're doing, I would want to first state very clearly what is the problem we're solving. So my pitch, pretty concisely, I just start with like somewhat of the same elevator pitch and then pause, not word ramble or vomit words. So what's the term? Verbal diarrhea. Don't do that. And just shut up and be like, okay, what's this person's reaction to what I'm saying? So I say, for example, today 90% of students today over 90% of what students learn is forgotten within a week. 2/3 of students feel unprepared for real life. And now 88% of assignments are written with AI.
Right.
And so we built Coraltalk to solve this problem. And then I just very briefly describe what we do. Quickly, here's our traction and any key metrics that they might want to know. And then I just stop talking, see what their response is, let them guide the conversation. They'll tell you what they want to know. In most cases, a VC has already gone through a pitch deck. Now, I'm a designer, so I can make that look a little bit better. But at the end of the day, like VCs, they don't even look for that. They look for what is going to give me conviction that I'm going to get at least a 10x return on my money. And so knowing that, I position whatever I say to address that proactively. That's what they care about.
Have you raised from US?
So we're in final stages of due diligence with 2 US funds right now.
Okay. What's the difference, like Canadian funds versus US funds?
So everything I'm about to say is anecdotal. I don't know that this is necessarily the case.
Makes sense.
But in my experience, US VCs are able to make decisions more quickly. They don't even blink at our valuation, whereas Canadian VCs will have to assess it based on other considerations in their possible portfolio. I find that American VCs, they're much more direct with their line of questioning. Canadian VCs kind of give an opportunity to talk more about the vision. What else can I say?
Is there more money in the US?
Oh yeah, I mean that's an objective sort of truth. I mean, I looked at the data and I think it was something crazy, like all of the VC capital that was deployed within Canada was less than just San Francisco last year.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not even an opinion. There's data on that.
And I'm guessing you're already expanding outside Canada. I heard like you're piloting with someone in Switzerland, if I'm not wrong.
We were accepted into an accelerator. It's the Swiss EdTech Collider in Switzerland.
Okay.
That's actually a really funny story how that happened. But we have a school in Saudi Arabia, and we are incorporated in Canada, but Coraltalk is very much a global play.
Right.
So this is, as far as I'm aware and concerned, this is a global company, and Canada is just our roots, but we'll grow from there.
Awesome. All right, well, I think it's time to wrap up. I really don't want to stop talking about, Coraltalk, and it's been a great time. And thank you once again for, coming up to the show and supporting us. I'm really going to root for Coraltalk, and I'm going to see, how probably again, as this airs, maybe you have already fundraised, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was such a pleasure. I really enjoyed our chat, and let's catch up. Let's catch up soon.
Absolutely.